Hi, friends. It's Alexis Percival with the Vinquisition, and I'm back to discuss hybrids, etc., part 2. Now, why do I say hybrids with an etc.? The reason is that it's difficult to talk about hybrid grapes without dragging in a bunch of other wine terms. So in part 2, I'm going to cover some of those other terms that we're going to be hearing more and more of, or maybe have already come up in your wine journey and you're not totally clear on what they mean. So I'm going to do a quick recap of part 1, in which I talked about the difference between crossings and hybrids of grapes. So a crossing is when you cross two, for example, Vitis vinifera grapes. Those are the main species of winemaking grapes. If you cross two within Vitis vinifera. Hybrid is when we cross a non-Vitis vinifera grape with Vitis vinifera. That is a hybrid. And the analogy I used was with animals, for example. There are some species that are aligned closely enough that they can interbreed. One note that I also wanted to mention is that another way to refer to hybrids is Peewee or Peewee, and it's a shortened moniker of a German word that refers to hybrid grapes. So if you're watching things online or any other wine education and you're hearing that term Peewee or Peewee, it's referring to hybrid grapes. So in part 1, I likened animal hybrids to understand grape hybrids, but there's one, well, probably more than one, but a very functional difference. And the major difference as it pertains to what we're discussing today is that animal hybrids are usually sterile. Now, yes, that can also be the case with grape hybrids. However, this is not an issue. And the reason being that the best way to breed or make more of a vine that you particularly like is to take clones. So if you take a grapevine that you think is producing exceptional fruit and you want more of that, you take cuttings and you root those cuttings. Then you can graft them on to other grapevines and produce exact DNA replicants of the parent plant. Now, why is this important? Well, first of all, speed, right? You can take cuttings and root them much faster, but also because grape seeds are not true to their parent plant. So, for example, if you have this Cabernet Sauvignon vine that you think is like producing exceptional fruit, you can't take the seeds of those grapes and then plant them and expect that you're going to get the same parent, because there's so much genetic material there that you're not going to get a replicant of that plant. So cloning is super important for grape breeding, basically. Now, there can be different clones of the same species of grape or the same subspecies. For example, you might hear a winemaker say, I use Chardonnay XYZ, because there are clonal varieties that are have different, they've been bred for different outstanding strengths, for example, like they might be heat resistant or drought resistant or things like that, while still maintaining the same subspecies. Now, grapevines in nature do mutate quickly if they're left to their own devices. Now, when I say quickly, I don't mean human terms quickly. I mean like geological terms quickly. But if the grapevines are left to their own devices, they will drop seeds and sprout new vines, and those mutations will happen rather fast. Like I said, there's a lot of genetic material in those grape seeds. So this is how we get things like Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, and Pinot Noir, much like akin to my earlier analogy, like Labrador Retrievers, we have Goldens, chocolate labs, and black labs, right? So they're all labs, they're all dogs, but they have these slight differences. And a final note about grafting is that if you're not familiar, if you're not somebody who gardens or has read about this before, grafting is when, let's say we have this exceptional specimen that we want to make more of. We take a cutting, it will sprout roots, okay? We can make more of it. just grow it like that. However, that's not actually the best way to propagate those grapevines, especially by law. In the EU, you cannot just take a cutting of a plant of a grapevine and then grow it from root. You need to root it on American rootstock. And the reason that is, as I discussed in the last video, we have North American grapes that are native to North America, and they are resistant to the pest phylloxera, which wiped out the European wine market in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and had lasting effects. Now, because of that, you cannot plant on anything other than American rootstock. So you would take your Vitis vinifera that you really like, that cutting, and you basically splice it on to the rootstock. It will continue to grow. So it's a Franken plant. The bottom half is a different species of grape. The top half is that Vitis vinifera. Okay, so whenever we hear the term ungrafted vines, it's usually referring to a vine that either is an old vine that survived through the times of phylloxera, or it just never needed to be grafted upon, and so it survived. Almost all grapes now are going to be planted on American rootstock, though, for safety purposes. So fun fact, that is how we've got around the major scourge of phylloxera. And from the decimation of the wine industry because of bringing these specimens back and forth across the Atlantic, it caused the problem, but then it also gave us the solution. So that concludes our talk about hybrids, etc. I hope these terms help you understand a little bit better just general wine breeding, propagation, and also hybrids in terms of the future of different grapes and wines that we're going to be seeing, certainly helping with climate change and opening up new areas that were not previously used for viticulture. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to talk about next, or if you need me to clarify something, I'm happy to do so. And until then, I'll see you next time on the Vinquisition.